Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Mo Show Live. Hey, it's Morris Ball. Sometimes in my Rotary Club, I get to meet some really interesting guests that are speakers, and they say, just really drive me to think about, gosh, they should be a guest on my podcast. What they and their nonprofit are doing are a real service to our community. And today's guest is at the top of that list. I had the privilege to meet Janet Gable, who is the executive director of the Crisis Services North Alabama, at a recent Rotary meeting. And I approached Janet and I said, Janet, I would love to have you on to spotlight you and all the incredible work that you and your team at Crisis Services North Alabama are doing. So that is who our guest is today. It's Janet Gable. She's the executive director of Crisis Services North Alabama. I think you're going to learn that their organization is providing a lot of critical services for a lot of folks in our community. And we're going to learn a bit more about what they're doing, what the needs are in our community, and how they're trying to fill those needs. Janet, how are you doing today? Thanks for making time. I know this is a busy month for you guys.
It's a busy month, but I'm very honored to be here. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. Folks, if you are watching us live and you got questions or comments on Facebook, LinkedIn, X, Twitter, whatever they call it these days, just put it in the comments below. I'll be watching it. But if you're watching the interview, like a lot of folks catch it on replay, then just put it in the comments there. I'll monitor it. And if there are resources or things we can get or respond to you, then I'll get with Janet and we'll get those resources and post those there. And we'll provide you with phone numbers and websites during the course of today's interview so to get more information about what CSNA does for our community. So I guess I just start, Janet. Can you kind of give our audience a little bit of background about the history of crisis service in North Alabama, kind of what your mission and the general services y'all provide for our community?
Absolutely. Our mission is to respond to individuals and families in crisis. And so that's exactly what we do. And the most important thing is that we don't really define a crisis because what may be a crisis to me may not be a crisis to somebody
Mm,
else. So um, Crisis Services was formed in 1999 with a merger of two other organizations, Helpline, which was established in 1971, and Hope Place, which was established in 1982. In 1998 or 1997, I approached the director of Hope Place with the thought of us merging our two organizations together with the idea that we can do more and we can do it better as one organization versus two separate organizations. So, after a year-long discussion with staff, volunteers, and our both boards of directors, in December of 1998, Helpline dissolved, and Crisis Services of North Alabama started January 1, 1999. So we've been around for a long time, and we provide um, uh, services to victims of domestic violence, victims of sexual assault, and we have a 24-hour crisis line, our helpline, as well as responding to 211, which is a United Way program that we
mm.
provide that service in our community.
Yeah, Daniel's great. Daniel was a recent guest earlier this year. Dasson Casimiro is a good friend of mine. They
Yeah.
do a great service for our community as well. Something you hit on there that I thought was just really salient, which was you guys don't define a crisis because that's so true. I talk to a lot of people about that, and what I do for a living is when people are struck by tragedy in their lives, how it impacts them may be different than how it impacts somebody else because of their DNA, how they're made up, their life situation and financial situation and do. So I think that's such a great point that you guys aren't trying to put a crisis into a box and make people's situations fit that box to be able to provide them services. So I think that's a really key point. I hadn't really thought about that in preparation for today's interview, but I thought that's a really cool point that you made and an important point, right?
Right, absolutely. We all um, have different backgrounds. We've grown up differently. We may have had adverse childhood events that
Mm.
have shaped us, and so the most important thing is to treat everybody as an individual and to respond appropriately to their situation.
Absolutely, and that's going to vary from person to person. And that kind of leads me to the first topic I really wanted to dive into a little bit, which is the counseling, crisis counseling services that you provide. Can you tell folks what kind of, maybe just give us kind of a big picture of when the types of calls y'all are fielding, who's calling from one end of the spectrum to the other. And then when people are calling, Janet, who's there answering? Talk to us about the folks that are answering the phone.
Absolutely, those are great questions. We have a 24-hour crisis line that is staffed by volunteers and our own paid staff. We are always looking for volunteers, so
Okay.
listen up if you have that interest. We receive calls on our crisis line. Last year, we responded to about 17,000 calls on our crisis line um, from individuals who uh, they may be elderly and they need somebody to talk to. They may not have people
Mm,
in their home and they just need to reach out to somebody and have a calm voice on the other end of the line. Of course, we receive calls from individuals who are victim survivors of domestic violence or sexual assault because we have other programs in support to help them with that. Um, we receive calls from individuals who may have mental health issues and they may be in between appointments or may not be able to get in with their own therapist. And so we provide that supportive service for them as they need it. Um, we receive calls from individuals that do have mental health issues and that they may have thoughts of suicide. And so we can provide crisis counseling and support regarding that, as well as, of course, refer them to the 988, the National Suicide Hotline number as well.
right. Janet, how big of a geographic territory or footprint do you guys typically have? We saw crisis service in North Alabama, but generally, when you're fielding calls, kind of from where to where y'all usually fielding calls from?
Actually, our crisis line gets calls from all over the United States. We
Okay.
don't advertise all over the United States, but somehow, they're looking for a crisis line and Google can pull us up. And so we do get calls from other states. Our primary target area um, is North Alabama. Our we serve different programs, serve different counties, but our primary counties are Madison, Morgan, Limestone, and Jackson County in North Alabama.
Now, the counselors that are fielding these calls and answering these calls on the crisis counseling hotline, talk to us a little bit about their background and what kind of training they have to be able to assist people calling in for their needs that they're calling about.
Yes, we have college students, we have retired individuals. You don't really need a specific background in order to volunteer.
Okay.
You just need to be able to listen and provide a compassionate response. We do have an intensive training, though. Our training is 32 hours of classroom training, and then we put them on the job training. So um, it's not a one and done volunteer opportunity because
Okay.
we do put you through quite a bit of training, talking about active listening. We do role play exercises, so we're building your skills each night that you're attending the training class. Um, Active listening, grief counseling, um, working with individuals who may have an addiction of some sort, going into depth about suicide prevention, domestic violence, sexual assault, and things like that.
And the services when folks are calling in, these are, I'm assuming these are confidential and free services, the services y'all are providing for the counseling, the hotline.
Right. It is a free service. We don't charge for any of our services that we offer here at Crisis Services.
Okay.
It is confidential up to the point that we are mandatory reporters. So if there's any discussion regarding anything with child abuse or abuse of a vulnerable population, then we do have to report that to the appropriate authorities. But
Okay.
other than that, we do maintain confidentiality regarding it.
One of the things that I recall you speaking to us about at the presentation I sat in on at Rotary was is that you provide domestic violence and sexual assault victim services there. Talk a little bit about what kind of services y'all provide to these folks and what their needs are and how you're trying to meet those needs.
Absolutely. Well, our domestic violence program serves Madison, Morgan, Limestone, and Jackson County, and we do have a shelter for victims of domestic violence and their children. They can come to our shelter, where in the shelter they first of all, they can have a good night's sleep because if you're living in a household full of domestic violence, the children aren't sleeping, the victim is not sleeping. And I think the most important thing that we can offer when we have individuals in shelter is just knowing that they can lay their head down and they would not be woken up because of somebody being so angry with them.
Wow. Yeah.
We provide all of the basics that they need, food, laundry services. We have uh, counseling available for domestic violence victims. We have provide case management services. Um, so basically, wraparound services for whatever their needs are at that point in time. We will work with them regarding safety planning, which, from the moment they call us on our crisis line, we're going to be talking about safety planning because, they, if they choose to come into our shelter, great. If they choose not to, we still want to talk to them about ways that they can be safe, either in the home or if they decide to go someplace else. We also have court advocates that will help them um, uh, if they go to court, if they file a police report, if they need a protection from assistance order. We're not attorneys and we don't practice law. Speaking to attorney, that, but we can stand beside them while they're going through that process.
Yeah. A lot of times, I would imagine that these people just need someone to be there with them and be
Mhm.
just an advocate for them in all respects, and certainly a safe place to for them and their children would be the first step. And with that, Janet, how many beds do y'all have? Do you have enough beds to meet the needs here in North Alabama? Is that something that y'all struggle with, or have you partnered with other agencies if y'all reach maximum capacity? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes, our shelter uh, houses between 22 and 25, and you would think I would know the exact number, but it really depends on the individuals in the shelter and how it kind of flows. So,
Yeah.
but we do have a maximum of 25 beds. We do work with we call them our sister shelters in the state. All of us are
Okay.
part of a coalition through the Alabama Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And we are all certified shelters, domestic violence shelters. We go through a standards review. We just went through ours last week, and we do that on an annual basis. And they come in and inspect our shelter, and they look at our policies and procedures, and just making sure that we're meeting all of the standards that are required in Alabama code and in the coalition. So so that we're all working together so that if our shelter is full, we can reach out to other shelters in the state to provide bed space if needed. Is there enough in the state? No, there's not enough shelters in the state. I wish we had more bed space. Um, we actually had another shelter that we had to close last June simply because of funding cuts and things like that. We just
Okay.
don't have the resources to provide that.
I know one of the things that you provide is forensic nurse examiners that come in if you have someone who's a victim of domestic violence or sexual assault. That from a legal standpoint, that can be very important that the victim is assessed quickly, so that can help identify A, what their legal, what their medical needs are, but B, also to help them pursue legal avenues from a criminal perspective to prosecute the abuser there. Talk a little bit about what that involves in terms of what is a forensic nurse examiner, and then I know another component of that is that you and your organization actually certify that and provide training and resources to have nurses certified in that. But first, tell our audience a little bit about what a forensic nurse examiner is so we kind of have an idea of that and why that's so important.
Yes, we have forensic nurse examiners who people may be more familiar with the word a SANE examiner, sexual assault nurse examiner. Well, at Crisis Services, we do more than just sexual assault exams. We also do domestic violence exams, child abuse exams, elderly abuse exams, strangulation exams. So our board made the decision quite a few years ago to change the sexual assault nurse examiner program to a forensic nurse examiner program. So our forensic nurses they once again all of our staff go through intensive training. They go through um, classroom training, as well as a clinical skills lab, as well as on the job training. And they are documenting the injuries and collecting any evidence of victims of domestic violence or sexual assault. And so this is incredibly important, as you said earlier, if they choose to prosecute or if they choose to report to law enforcement, then there's potential evidence that we are able to collect, and photographs of injuries, will be made available to them for the purpose of prosecution.
What's
You
kind of the, go ahead. I'm sorry, Janet.
I think one of the most important things is that we would love for everybody to report any crime to law enforcement, but depending on people's situations, that may not be um, safe for them to do that, or it may not. They just may not be comfortable with that
Right.
process. So if they're an adult, it is their decision whether to report to law enforcement or not. We're still going to collect that evidence. We're still going to document those injuries. And then, they may decide a little bit later that, I really do want to report this. So
Right.
we're hoping everybody would come in, as soon after the assault as possible. And then if they decide later on that they do want to report, then we'll be there to support them on that. Of course, if they're a minor, we're mandatory reporters, so that will be something that will be reported.
Yeah. And Janet, are y'all connected? Because as I understand, is there kind of a limited number? Is there a need for forensic nurse examiners in our area? And is that something that y'all are connected with other agencies to provide those services? Or once you get these nurses certified, that they are now connected with other entities like the North Alabama Child Development Advocacy Center here and other agencies, similar agencies and local police departments to provide their services so when a victim comes forward that there is the proper person there to address that need as quick as possible in the proper manner to address it.
Well, one of the things that we do is that we do train nurses from all over the country. And actually,
Okay.
we've been training nurses in Brazil, and we're my forensic nurse examiner director is working with somebody in South Africa. We are training other communities. So folks are coming here to receive that training, and we're going other places as well to provide that training. Um, and so, they're either going to be working with us or they're going to be going back to their own community. There is a huge shortage of uh, forensic nurses in the country, and there's been some federal funding to try to boost the number of those sexual assault nurse examiners specifically. And so we've been able to help some other communities by providing that training to them.
Yeah, well, it's just immense because to make sure that someone's there to properly address the situation safely, properly, provide the comfort and care that they need, but at the same time making sure that the scientific evidence and things are addressed in an appropriate manner, so there's no uh, legal hiccups, let's say, on the back end, and do that's so important. Um, Talk a little bit about. We talked at the beginning of the interview about the 211 services for folks that may not be familiar with that, and it was not something I was familiar with until spoke to Daniel from the United Way in a prior interview. But for folks that have not seen that interview and probably haven't familiar with those services, talk a little bit about what those are and your organization's involvement with 211 here in North Alabama.
Yeah, 201 is a national number, and so, whatever community you're living in, you can dial 211, and, you should be able to connect with an organization. A lot of times it is a United Way agency that, if you're looking for any type of health or human service information. And Madison County, we provide that service. Actually, we provide that service for Madison, Morgan, Limestone, Jackson, Marshall, and DeKalb counties. So if you're calling from those counties, you'll actually reach one of our staff, our 211 staff. Um,
Okay.
so I mean, just anything that you're looking for, health or human service related. If you need to know, my parents just moved into town. What resources are available for the elderly? Call 211. Uh, I have our most frequent call is I need financial assistance. What agencies are
Hmm.
helping out with financial resources? So 211 has that up to date information.
It's like y'all have already done the homework, and if
Hmm.
there's information out there for housing, food, healthcare, financial assistance, you have those resources have kind of been pulled, and it's kind of a great starting place. So you're not starting from scratch, is what it sounds like to me.
Right, right. And
Uh,
Madison County is really blessed with a lot of great resources. So
Absolutely.
we we live in a fortunate community. Yes.
We do, and one of the things though that I think sometimes is lost on folks that is that there, while we are in a very rich community with regards to resources and a lot of very giving people, I think sometimes it's lost because we're in the top 10 list of greatest places and greatest that and this all the time, but the needs in our community are still there. They may not be as in front of you as they maybe are in some other communities, but they're there. And that's why having 211 that centralizes those services, having your organization there for people who are having crisis needs, that you're meeting those needs. I know that this is a big month for you guys. Can you kind of tell us what's going on here in April? I think it's a Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Talk a little bit about what that means and what you guys are doing to highlight that awareness, and it's some upcoming events that I think y'all have coming up in April.
Absolutely. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and we do have several events going on. If anybody's in the courthouse, we have a display at the courthouse in Madison County, and I believe in Jackson County as well,
Okay.
um, uh, regarding what were they wearing. A lot of people uh, have the misconception that sexual assault occurs because of what somebody is wearing. And so we have a display showing people, wearing things that, uh, and with a little snippet of their story of when they were sexually assaulted, to kind of debunk that myth that it really doesn't have anything to do with the clothes that a person is wearing, but it's more about, you know, the person that committed the crime and not the victim
Uh,
that it was happened to. We also have a Jeans for Justice event that is going on at Straight to Ale. Um, this is Jeans for Justice is the result of a judge in France who said a victim could not have been raped or sexually assaulted because she was wearing jeans, and that in order for the perpetrator to remove the jeans, he had to have assistance. So therefore, the victim could not have been sexually assaulted. And we all know that is not true. Uh, And then we have some benefits going on. Actually, this weekend's the Rosé Society has chosen our forensic nurses for proceeds from their Rosé Ball, which is happening on Saturday. And then there's also a benefits concert at Mad Malt's, which is happening also this Saturday, April the 5th. If anybody is going to the pop culture event at the end of the month, April 25th to 27th, please come by our booth as we will be there as well. And then also Bruce to Benefit is Saturday, April 26th. And they will be donating $1 for every pint that they sell. So those are just a couple of things that are going on in regarding Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
Yeah, and I'm gonna pull this over here, and you guys have a great, and I'll share this here on the scroll down there at the bottom. But if people want to you can just go to y'all's website there under the events, and I think it's under the About Us section there, and you have a lot of the information there. And do the other thing that I know is you guys have a social media presence, so you guys can go out there and find them on the website. Crisis Service North Alabama website has links to all their social profiles. So if you want to kind of keep track of what they're doing in the community, upcoming events, information and resources that they provide, that would be, assume, Janet, that's going to be a great place for people can do that and share out that information. Last thing is how are you guys funded? Talk a little bit about the providing all of these resources, and I know it's probably heavily volunteer based. We were talking about some of the counselors that are fielding these phone calls are volunteers, but in addition to volunteers, how are you getting funded, and what can we do to help?
Uh, yes, we are funded through lot of different streams. We're United Way agencies in all of the counties that we serve. So we receive funding from United Way. We also receive, we can't do the work that we do without funding, and so we also receive federal grants. Um, and and our own fundraisers. The Turkey Trot happens every year at Thanksgiving Day at UAH, and we have over 2,000 runners. It's a huge family event, so I encourage everybody to look forward to that. We'll probably have that out in September. Uh, and then the huge generosity of our community, and we really rely on our community to help support us through donations and um, not only cash donations, which are always great, but also material donations to help support us with our shelter program.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask that in addition to cash, but if people have things that might be beneficial to families that are in the shelter, you guys accept those kind of donations as well.
Yes, we do. We don't accept clothing though. We just don't
Okay.
have the capacity to handle everything that is needed with clothing. But we are so fortunate once again to live in this community that have some really great organizations that have clothes closets and things like that, so that we can bring our clients to those organizations that really do a great job in collecting and donating clothing.
Janet, and I've shared this a couple of times already, but if someone knows someone, if someone's watching this, or they have a family or a friend that needs to talk to someone, is that the best number, this 716-1000 number to call, to have somebody on the line that can kind of talk them through their situation and help provide them some assistance and point them in the right direction in reference to whatever their situation may be.
Absolutely. That is the perfect number to call, the 256-716-1000. That number is 24/7. So, if you need us at 3 a.m. in the morning, then you call us at 3 a.m. in the morning, because somebody is going to be on that available to respond to that call. So that is the most important number to remember.
Okay, that's why I wanted to kind of wrap up with that. And lastly, if someone feels compelled, can they just reach out if they want to come and volunteer and do? And you guys, I'm sure, will put them to work, and they can just reach out to you through the website or through the main phone number, and you guys can find out what your availability is and what their time and needs are, and then you guys can probably put them to work. I
Absolutely, yes. We would love to put them to work, and they can even call
bet.
that crisis line, and they will immediately put them in touch with their volunteer coordinator. So,
Awesome. Janet, thank you and your team for what you do. These are not easy topics to talk about. Nobody sits around, I think, and wants to talk about the domestic violence or sexual abuse, but these are important topics that we need to have open conversations about. And we need to know that these things are actively going on in our community and probably more than we realize. And to have these resources available, to have your team, counselors, nurses available, and advocates, and all the things that the resources that these people victims may need. It's so great to know this is here. We want to support you to make sure that y'all's resources are met so you can meet the needs of these victims out there. So thank you for what you and your team are doing.
well, thank you. I am blessed to work with fabulous individuals. The staff and volunteers are remarkable to give their time and their energy to support victims of violence. So it really is a incredibly supportive organization just by the people that I have the privilege of working with.
Absolutely. Janet, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for what you're doing for our community and your organization's doing for our community. Folks, if you want to help or support, please check out their website. And it's csna.org. And if you know someone in need that needs to speak to someone immediately 24 hours a day, 256 Janet, thank you so much. Take care and hope you guys have a great month with all the events y'all have coming up.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.